Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotar Tadashri Srimad, Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavina Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of November 2023 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And the title of the chapter is Karma Yoga, 3rd chapter, 20th verse, page 157. Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Loka Sangraham Evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Loka Sangraham Evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Lokasangaham evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Lokasangraham evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Lokasangraham evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi. Anyone on this side want to try? Go ahead. Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Lokasangraham evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya Lokasangraham evapi Sampashyan Kartamarhasi. Go ahead. No, Karmanaiva. Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim Astita Janakadaya. We'll go over it. Go ahead, keep going. Loka, no, the second line. Loka Sangraham evapi. Loka Sangraham evapi Arhasi. Sampashyan Kartamarhasi. Anyone online?
Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim
Karmanaiva Hisangsiddhim
Astita Janakadaya
Astita Janakadaya
Lokasangraham evapi
Lokasangraham evapi
Sampashyan Kartamarhasi.
Sampashyan Kartamarhasi. Karmana, by work, eva, even, he, certainly, sangsiddhim, in perfection, astitaha, situated, janaka adiyaha, Janaka and other kings, loka sangraham, the people in general, eva api, also, sampashyan, considering, kartum, to act, arhasi, you deserve. Kings such as Janaka attain perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Purport. Kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janaka was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Ram. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendently situated, but because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal friend, had no need to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but they fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in a situation where good arguments fail. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the other party was determined to fight. So for such a right cause, there is a necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still works to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow. And this is explained in the following verse. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna is giving the example of a great king, of which we have so many other examples in the Shastra, such as King Parikshit, King Prithu, King Yudhishthir, and obviously, who is the king is very important. Who is the president was important. Who the leader is important, not only because of the policies that they have of governing, but also as examples. And when the people who are in the spotlight like that, who are in leadership positions, don't set a good example, then it can cause havoc in society. We can see that. Because the next verse will explain that inevitably such leaders, or say the teacher in a class, or any leadership position, they're being watched, and the people under their care are going to take them as a model of how to act and what to do and how to think. The moral tone of society is set by the leaders. So that's what Krishna is speaking about here. And Arjuna certainly is not going to be the king, but he's still in the leadership position. And the whole idea is that even through just performing his duties, the question is the consciousness in which you perform it. That's everything. Two people may be doing the same thing, taking out the trash. And one is getting $5 an hour, $10, $15 an hour, from the Hare Krishnas to sweep up and do the thing. And the other one is doing the same work just as a matter of duty, as a matter of devotion. It's my service, and I'm going to do it as perfect as possible. Because if you're in Krishna consciousness, then you have the idea that, oh, this is for the pleasure of Krishna. And you're getting your pleasure from giving Krishna pleasure. That's the whole essence of Krishna consciousness. And we have so many examples in society of what we call the reflection of that. An example, the classic case is the mother and the child. The mother, it's the arrangement that the mother automatically loves the child, because otherwise the child would not flourish. There was an incident, so many tragedies in this world. I went to India one time by way of Romania, believe it or not. It was a very cheap flight, $700 or $750 round trip, which is unheard of now. I think it's thousands of dollars. So we had to stop in Bucharest, and there was a leader there who'd been really like one of these monstrous guys, but because it was a small country, he didn't have that much effect, but in the country he did. And for years it was a communist, they had ruled Romania and this and that. And so he had this policy of forcing women to have children even against their will, and they would then give them over as an orphanage. And she had all of these kids in these orphanages with very little care, very little love from the mother, and it was disastrous. You can imagine. That's so essential at an early age like that to have that. And that was one of the atrocities that he was responsible for. I don't go into detail. But what I remember is landing in Bucharest. It was shortly after he was deposed, and there was all these guys in black leather jackets, like you'd find with the motorcycle gangs, And who are these guys, And they were just ordinary guys, But the secret police, or not so secret police, that was their uniform, you know. So they bought those jackets just to have the feel of being, you know, tough guys and so forth. It was like, it's craziness. So we had a little layover there, and I got a little taste. We walked outside and we saw it, and the architecture was all this Soviet style architecture, very depressing, you know. It's like big radiators. Apartment buildings, you know, no style, no, you know, like this form, this, you know, that is, you see everywhere, you know. This is a classic form of like uplifting the soul, the spirit toward God. You know, architecture is very important. And you can imagine how long it took a whole year. You asked Purusha, you know, Purusha, the photographer, was here at the time. He's an old timer. And he took some photographs of them, you know, getting the temple ready. And it took such a long time to create this and do those, you know, the sculpture on the wall. I always wondered about this guy with his back to us. You notice how you got the musicians playing, right? There's a mridanga player, a tambour, and he's got his back to us. Because he's the flute player, and if he's facing you, you're going to think he's Krishna. You notice that? Yeah. It's very, you may not be conscious of it all the time, but everything in this room really uplifts you and makes you Krishna conscious. That's the whole idea of a temple. As soon as you walk in, the very architecture, the deities, of course, the incense, you know, helps you remember Krishna. So anyway, a little side light there. But that's going to come up in the next verse, which is very often quoted. But here he's saying that you can attain. In other words, you don't have to leave your post and take sannyas, go off to the forest, go into a cave. You can integrate Krishna consciousness into your life, into your, you know, your household life, job, and so forth. Yes, it's more difficult than living full time in the ashram. That's, you know, but that's not possible for the vast majority of people. So we need to find those techniques whereby we can have a Krishna conscious life, and we can have the discipline, but we can also be in the world and perform our duties. And that's also an important example for people in general, because the vast majority of people can't give up everything and move into the ashram. And here, even if you want to move in the ashram, there's no room. So, you know, but you can still be full-time devotee. And like, so we have such great examples like Yamunapati. Now, he had a whole career as a manager for, I think, health, you know, gyms and things like that, you know. And he retired now. And so what is he doing? He went back out on book distribution. He resumed his life that he had. There's a picture of him when he was about 18 in Chicago when Prabhupada visited. You can see him in the back there. He was part of the Radha Damodar bus party, you know. And so now he's going back and doing what he really wanted to do the whole time, you know, which is a good book distribution. And he's going to give class, I think, this coming week. It's very nice. Okay, so let's go on. Yad yadachadati shreshtas tattadeve tarojanaha sayat pamanam kurute lokas tadunuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport: people in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, or scripture, to teach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of the revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures, like the Manu Samhita and similar others, are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of such standard shastras. One who desires to improve himself must follow the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king or the executive head of a state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with the standard books of moral and spiritual codes. There's a verse, Rishabdev. Guru na sasyat, svajano na satsat, pita na sadyat, janani na satsat, daiva na tatsat, napatishta sasyan, namochiyed yang samopetam rityam. Where he says one should not become a guru, a spiritual master, or a father, or a mother, or a relative, or a husband, if one cannot deliver one's dependence from birth and death. Now, I always wondered about that because everyone has free will. So even if you're, even if you're very strict in your own sadhana and you're teaching your dependents, they still may go off, especially in the modern age. So what does that mean? Then you failed. But in other words, you can deliver them. You're trying your best by the orthodox means. But if they refuse to do it, that's not your fault. The point is you are able to deliver because you're practicing and you know the principles yourself. You see, so in this way, the spiritual culture is passed on from generation to generation. This is why Krishna came, because it wasn't being passed on. You remember, we'll read in a few verses in the beginning of chapter 4, Krishna says, what is it? Imam vivasvade yogam? He says the genealogy, if you will, of the Gita. Imam vivasvade yogam proktavan hamavyam vivasvam manave praha manurikshakave babit. He's giving a history of the Gita. I spoke it to the sun god, Vivasvan, who then spoke it to Vivasvan. Spoke it to Manu, Vivasvata Manu, who then spoke it to Ikshvaku, and it came down to human society in that way. Huh? Well, in this case, he's saying how he spoke it first to the sun god. Yeah, because at the very beginning of the universe, he didn't speak it, but in the heart he manifested. But by the powerful force of time, this science has been lost. This is what happens in society, especially in Kali Yuga. So therefore, I'm speaking it again to you, Arjun, and you can carry it forth in society. And he's not only speaking it, but he arranged that that it would be heard by Sanjay and then written down by Vyasadeva and come down to human society. So it wasn't just that Arjun, whoever got in touch with Arjun, was going to get it, but it would be current in human society. And Srila Prabhupada's translating it into English is the further Krishna's plan of having it, help to run society. It's what he was supposed to run society. So the whole idea, this chapter is all about activity, karma yoga. What do you do? How can you best act in such a way that you get the best possible next birth? The best possible next birth is in Vaikuntha. But even if you don't get that birth, you'll get a birth that's favorable to you to progress toward Vaikuntha or the Loka Vrindavan. That's the idea. And in the process of doing that, you'll be able to help so many others by what the example you set and the teachings that you can give. The word acharya is very important. Acharya comes from the word achar, which means behavior. See, so the acharya, he has certain qualifications. He knows the Vedas, knows the Vedic wisdom, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, the books, basically. He acts according to those principles and teaches them, and in this way, he's an exemplar as well as a source of knowledge and someone who you can follow and have confidence in. So that acharya word is rare because you have to know, and you have to behave right, and you have to teach. Many just, the bhajananandi, there's two terms, bhajananandi and goshtanandi. We used to have what we called ishta goshtis. The last ishta goshti I was at was right here during the pandemic. And there was some resistance to wearing masks and doing some of the restrictions that, Maharaj wanted us to do to protect the temple. And so we had an ishta goshti, and he explained why we have to do it. We all have to, get on board because anyone can become a carrier, like the whole thing. So we used to have regular ishta goshtis to discuss issues in the temple and, what's not getting done. The little remnant of that, anyone who comes to Mangalarti, Maharaj will sometimes speak up. After they read the scores and I read the little thing from the book, the Namamrita book. Maharaj, you have anything? Yes. Why are there so much trash accumulating in the patio? That's not good. So, okay, you take care of it, Vijayamani. Okay, all right. So that's, management. How we all, one for all and all for one, and kind of pulling together to maintain the temple as a very spiritual place and enlivening for all. Okay, so let's go on. This next verse is often quoted for those who are interested. Yadyadacharati shreshtas. We read that. We just read that one. Okay. Text 22. Name partasti kartavyam. Trishu lokeshu kinchana. Nanavaptam avaptavyam. Varta eva chakarmani. O son of Pita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems. Nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. As the best example. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures as follows, and the second verse here, we probably would often quote, especially. Tam Ishwaranam Padamam Maheshwaram Tam Devatanam Padamam Chadaivatam Patim Patinam Padamam Parastad Vidama Devam Bhuvanesham Idyam Natasya Karyam Karanam Cha Vidyate Natat Samaschab Jadikascha Drishyate Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and He is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under His control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the Supreme Director of all directors. Therefore, He is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than Him, and He is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess a bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between His body and His soul. He is absolute. All His senses are transcendental. Any one of His senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than Him or equal to Him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus His deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Shvetashvara Upanishad 6-7-8. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead, and is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty, but one who has nothing to achieve within the three planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet Lord Krishna is engaged on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty-bound to give protection to the distressed. Although He is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, He does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. So this second verse, as I said, is often quoted. Natasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. Now what that means is that He doesn't have any duties. A duty is something, if you think about it, that's given to you from a higher power. In other words, if you're a citizen and you goes to war, then you may be drafted into the army, and you have the duty to follow, and to obey. So it's given by a higher authority. Well, there's no higher authority than Krishna. So Prabhupada would often say he has nothing to do. Nothing to do. What Prabhupada means, English language can be very treacherous sometimes. He has nothing to do is one way of saying it. He doesn't have to do anything is another way. That's what Prabhupada means by that. If he has nothing to do, why is he dancing with the gopis, playing with his friends, doing? It's like a mother saying her son is just lying down, looking at them. Don't you have anything to do? Why don't you go out and play or something? In other words, she wants him to do something. So Krishna has so much to do, but it's all play. It's self. In other words, no one can tell him what to do. There is no duty for him to perform. And yet, out of kindness to us, he takes the role, like as Ramchandra, he takes the role as the king, and as Krishna, he does so many things for our benefit. That is outside the realm of everything is play and lila. Of course, for him, ultimately, it's all lila. But still, he's doing it in such a way that he's the example. That comes up in the Krishna book when he goes to Dwarka. There's different divisions of his pastimes. So when he goes to Dwarka, he's now married. He's got 16,108 queens, And he's the perfect husband. You know, he gets up early in the morning and meditates. You know that? And Prabhupada said that the queens were disgusted. You know, they're lying in bed with him, and the cock crows, and he gets out of bed, and he takes a cold shower, I guess. Well, I may be exaggerating. And he sits down and meditates on himself. Prabhupada makes it clear, we shouldn't meditate on ourselves. You know, he's meditating on himself because he's the object of meditation. So he's but the point is, Narada Muni comes to see what's going on in all these palaces, and those who read the Krishna book. And he sees Krishna performing various, you know, duties of a father. He's getting some daughter married. His daughters aren't so much mentioned. He had 10 sons by each wife. You know, then he goes, well, how many is that? I got 168,000 sons. So, but he also had one daughter by each wife. You know, they needed to be married, and so he's doing that, and then he goes to the sabha and takes part in the meeting to govern the big Dwarka. You know, he's also there. So he's showing by example how to be the perfect husband, perfect member. So, you know, for example, for the people in general, yeah. Yeah. Where is that mic? We just brought one out, huh?
Is there any significance to the number of male children he has and the one daughter or female child? Is there some significance to that?
There might be, but I don't know it.
Okay. How do you think?
You mean that they outnumbered the girls by 10 to 1?
No, that with all his wives, he had the same amount of male children, the number, and then one female child. So I didn't know if there was if that was an example to set.
There may be some significance to all those. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is though.
Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you.
But they're often mentioned. I mean, the names are given of the first 8. There's 8 main queens, and one of the queens is Jambavati. Jambavati means daughter of Jambavan. You know, the pastime where we fought with Jambavan, the king of the bears, over the Samantaka jewel. You'll never hear devotees say Samantaka jewel, Shamantaka, because that's the way they learned it, Shamantaka. It's Samantaka jewel. And so Jambavan, he had been all the way from Ram Lila. He was a devotee of Ram, you know. And so he didn't recognize that Krishna was the same Ram reincarnated. So he's fighting 28 days, I think, you know. Who is it? Because Jambavan was the most powerful entity on the planet at that. So finally he realized, oh, this is the same Ram in a different form. So he surrenders to him. He gives him the jewel, and he gives him his daughter in marriage, Jambavati. She was one of the main queens of the main 8, the first 8 queens. And one of the sons of Jambavati was Dravida. And I think that's where my name comes from. Yes, Chris. Oh yeah, why don't you run and get the other mic?
So any one of his senses can perform the action of any other sense?
Yes.
Is that like when food items are offered to him, he doesn't actually need to eat it?
By looking at it, he can see. He can eat the devotion. That's what he's really interested in. He can see what, you know, how it was, the consciousness of which was produced, and that's what he really relishes. But yes, he can eat with his eyes, and you know, that's right in the Brahma Samhita.
Right.
Angani yasya sakalendriya vittimanti. One of the many inconceivable things about Krishna. All right, where were we? 23. Yadi yaham navarteyam jatu karman yatanditaha mama vartmana vartante manusyak partasarvashaha. For, so this is from the last verse, so I'll just read the translation there. O son of Pita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. Purport: in order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps, because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. Now, of course, it's a little bit confusing. It can be a little bit puzzling, because there are many things that Krishna did that we're not supposed to follow, like dance with the gopis, other men's wives, that whole thing. And in fact, people get confused. I remember these things stick out, my old career in the travel. So I'm traveling and I'm at the carousel ready to pick up my luggage. And some guy comes over to me and says, how can you, worship this God, Krishna, who dances with other wives, and I just ignored him. I just tried to shut my ears. He didn't persist really. But that's a misconception. But it can be confusing, And so there's a statement. I think it's in those chapters in the 10th canto describing the rasa dance, that one should take Krishna's activities as a model, or any powerful devotee, when they comport with the instructions of the Shastra. In other words, there were certain things that Krishna did that aren't part of the duties that we're going to have, and there's some, that's things that we should avoid doing, but that he can do it because he's all powerful. And it's described in the rasa dance because it's so, it can be hazardous, and it is, because there is a certain class of men in India who are professional Bhagavatam reciters. Prabhupada talks about this in the first canto, because he's writing in India, and he's writing that, to watch out. So he's saying that what they do, they have a Bhagavat Saptaha, means a 7-day reading of Bhagavatam. Now, you know where that comes from. That's Shukadev speaking the Parikat, 7 days. But nobody's, just sitting there for 7 days with, nights without eating and sleeping and listening to Bhagavatam. They're, having a 9 to 5 reading or 10 to 1 reading, whatever. But what they're reading is the rasa dance. That's what people want to hear, the rasa dance. But the fact is that you shouldn't hear the rasa dance right off the bat. The rasa dance really is something to be relished and heard after you're somewhat mature in devotional service, and you don't try to imitate, and you don't superimpose material assumptions on what Krishna is doing. It's completely different, than it looks like. It's completely the most virtuous thing. The gopis are pouring their hearts out. They're ready to abandon all of the normal strictures of family life for Krishna's sake. So it's a big hardship. They're just going out in the middle of the night. They may not be able to even return to their house, but they're ready to sacrifice everything just for his pleasure. And it's a lot of it is condensed in that last verse of the Shikshastika, the mood. That's Radharani's verse. It's really Ashli Shiva Padatang Panashtama Madarshanan Marmahatang Karotava Yata Tata Babadadhata Lampato Mat Prananatas to Saheva Napara. Let Madhava embrace this maid who's fallen at his feet, or let him trample me, or my most ardent hopes defeat by never giving me a chance to see him anywhere, thus shattering my heart and plunging me into despair. You see, he is a restless libertine and not a saint, so let him act in any way he likes without restraint. But though his cruel and crooked ways may cause me constant woe, Krishna is the only Lord my heart shall ever know. And for those who were in class a few days ago, who was it who read that? I think it was Amogalila Prabhu. That there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita defining one of the how should you say it, the signifying qualities of pure devotion, of prema, as opposed to kama. Prema, the contrast, it may resemble, that strong attraction, but it's completely opposite. So, and that is that there may be so many reasons for terminating the relationship. Oh, he cheated on me, how can I love him anymore? I hate him now, But the gopis never did that, He went off, He married 16,108 wives, had children by them, but they still loved him. They're still waiting, pining for when he's going to return. And when when Balaram comes to visit, they just want to hear how Krishna's doing, like that. So they never stop loving him. So that's the signal quality, is that it's beyond the modes of nature and the waves, and it's pure. The only reason the gopis went out is just to please Krishna, because he called them with that flute, and they ardently wanted to please him in that way and come out there. And then he teases them, says, "Oh, you come out. How can what can I do for you?" It's like this formal thing, And then he says, "You should go home. It's very dangerous in the forest now. There's all these wild animals. You've seen the forest now go home. And, adulterous affairs are not very good. You can never go to heaven. Women can never go to heaven." They listen to this, and they're tapping their feet. And then they chastise him. "You know why we came out here. You called us with the flute. What are you cheating?" So, okay. So then they start walking. Then they get proud. He disappears. It's the whole thing. If you study the Leela of Krishna, he's always engineering a way in which to bring out the really powerful emotions of love from the Vrijvasis. Just think of the Kaliya Leela, the Kaliya thing, So here's, he allowed it all to happen. That this, snake would come in and poison the waters and kill his friends. He'd bring them back to life, and then he would have a chance to chastise his Kali snake. So you know what it is. So after he jumps in there and he's cavorting with the snake, and then all the residents, they go to the shore to see him, because there's all these bad omens. And he didn't go with Balaram. Balaram is his protector. He's stronger. He's 7 days older. He a week older, he can protect. But he didn't go that day. So they're very worried. They go down, and then they get to the bank of the river, and they see Krishna in the coils of this monstrous snake, 100 hoods, python. It's like a big dragon. And he's obviously a goner. He's just this delicate little boy. So Mother Yashoda is crazy. She wants to go in and save him. And Balaram stops them all. Because he knows there's no danger. So after like an hour or more of that, and he saw that the residents were practically dying, and the cows and everyone was on the. So then he breaks out, and he jumps up on the top of the hoods, and he starts dancing. And I read, there's so much to this each pastime that's in the commentaries, that his dancing on those hoods is the origin of all the different meters in the Sanskrit, which you haven't heard many. This is a poem by Rupa Goswami about Krishna. So all of that, he's dancing, and the heavenly, residents are playing drums, and the flowers are coming down, and suddenly it's a big celebration. Oh, what a relief, And then he comes out, and he's all dressed, and they all embrace him. Oh, thank God, So it's a big. He engineered all that, to pull out. And then it's so late, they take rest on the shore. You know what happens next? The fire comes up, and they're about to be burned. They said, "Krishna, help, save us!" And he swallows the fire. So he's constantly doing that. So the same thing is there with the rasa dance. He finally he gives the gopis what they want. And he comes out, and then. So what do you come out here? It's so dangerous, now that you see me, go back. Adultery is not good, It ruins it. So that's the pastimes, Leela. So that's hardly, following duties, and he's not doing that here,
I had a question, Prabhu.
Go ahead.
So it's recommended that one reads all the first 9 cantos before they read the 10th canto. So what about the Krishna book? How can one, get into the Krishna book and be okay?
Yes, because Prabhupada presented it in such a way that there's no chance of misapprehending it.
I see.
When I worked on the 10th canto in the actual Bhagavatam in Miami in the 80s, I got to see, and read the commentaries that were integrated into the purports that we were producing, that Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu and Vidyananda Maharaj were producing. And I saw that Prabhupada carefully followed, especially Vishwanath Chakravarti. He has so many explanations in there, so there's no way of misapprehending what's really going on. So that prevents, because these Bhagavad Saptaha readers are not doing that. They're just reading the Sanskrit and the English or Hindi, whatever they're speaking in. And people, you're sure to get a wrong idea if you just do that and you don't get some of the comments, you know. Like, so Prabhupada weaves it in. If you read that Rasadan's presentation, it's very clear what's going on. You know.
And these professional lecturers, are they devotees or are they like bona fide? Yeah, so they're not even bona fide to expound on it.
They're getting paid for it, you know, and it's 7 days, and it's just Prabhupada, you know, he's fighting that, and that's one of the things he's recently wrote the Bhagavatam, so you can understand all of the preliminaries, and then you can understand the highest thing. Yeah. All right, so we are on 24 now, right? Yeah. Utsideo me loka nakuryam karma chedaham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyam imaprajaha. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Now, for those who remember the first chapter and the beginning of the second chapter, Arjuna was arguing that if I perform my duty and I help kill all these other fighters, their wives will be left without protection and will be varna sankara, there'll be unwanted population. I'll be the cause of it. You see, just the opposite. Krishna says, if I did not perform my prescribed duty, all the worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating a unwanted population. So he's saying, no, you're exactly wrong. If you perform your duty properly, he's saying to Arjuna, because don't forget, the whole context is he wants him to pick up the fight at the end. So this is part of it. And I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So Prabhupada is the first words in the purport, Varna Sankara, you see? Varna Sankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of the general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulations in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill, as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33, 30-31 affirms, Naitat samachare jatu manasapi yanishvaraha vinashyat achadan maudhyad yata rudrobdi jam visham ishvaranam bhajak satyam tatayava chaditam kvichit tesham yat svavacho yuktam buddhimams tat samachare. I was just thinking about this. Hare Krishna, welcome. There'll be darshan in about 10 minutes. Quote, the translation, one should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. We should always consider the position of the Ishwaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishwaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean, but if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, that's actually ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo-devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasalila, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan Hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions, nor should one try to occupy their post without qualification. There are so many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. Yes, yes. And this was Prabhupada's struggle during his whole preaching tour, wherever he went. Because when he came to America, he stayed with, Dr. Mishra. Now he was a small timer, but he was an impersonalist and he had followers, and he wouldn't allow Prabhupada to speak to them because they would be, he was afraid they would get attracted to practice bhakti, he would lose them. I was in that position myself, where I was getting involved with the Ramakrishna mission, and the young leader there, he had taken over from Nikalananda, who Prabhupada met. And he was anxious to get, intelligent young men involved. So he tried to discourage me from going to the Hare Krishnas, because he saw I was getting attracted there. He says, oh, the standard thing. Oh, yes, that's for the emotional masses, bhakti. The real thing is gyan, gyan, gyan. So he made the mistake of bad-mouthing the Hare Krishnas. So instead of getting turned off to them, I got turned off to him and then joined Hare Krishna. Yeah, obviously. But that's what they preach, I even bought the Saririka Bhasha, translated by Nikalananda, who Prabhupada met, But thank God I never read it. Lord Chaitanya says if you hear the Mayavad interpretation, you're finished. It can be very, very poisoning. So we should. The way we can learn about it is by reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are long purposes in the 7th chapter of the Adi Leela, where Lord Chaitanya meets the Prakashananda Saraswati, who was the leader of the Mayavadis in Benares at the time. And he has a long talk with him and converts him and his thousands of followers. And there's so much about Mayavad, the explanation of the dangers of Mayavad in those purports. That's how we can study it, is be protected. Yeah.
This topic came up when we were reading teachings of Lord Chaitanya with the brahmacharis. So is it like an exalted devotee that can preach or attempt to convert a Mayavadi or an impersonalist or something? Because typically it's we're warned against associating or reading or associating in any way with Mayavadis and impersonalists.
Well, it's certainly an empowered incarnation like Lord Chaitanya, who can convert thousands of them. But it's not necessarily true that you have to be super advanced in order to debate with them. Lord Prabhupada's first disciple who lived in India, his name was Chutananda. There were no ISKCON buildings then. He was staying with the Gaudiya Math. And he went and they encountered these Mayavadis, and he would just, give the principles that Prabhupada gave, And so he was protected. But it's important that, if you're going to do that, to really get the arguments down, that Prabhupada presents in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's very clear.
Also be situated in bhakti. I mean,
yes,
you don't want to.
Yes, be strong in your sadhana. Otherwise, you can get swept away. All right, one more. 25, right? Sakta karmanya vidmangso yata kurvanti bharata koyad vidvang tata saktash chikishu lokasangraham. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna-conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. So this is the theme of this chapter. Karma yoga means working to see that everything you do is a sacrifice. Just like here, you sacrifice some time, and that's, or you go to Harinam, there's some energy, The thing is, it's so pleasing, the Harinam, and that it doesn't feel like a big sacrifice. And ultimately it becomes a great pleasure to perform that sacrifice. So it's a yajna, but the yajna turns into a celebration. So that's the magic of Krishna consciousness. It starts out as, okay, I got to do my duty. But then I say, oh, this is nice, Yes, I'll clean Tulsi's abode every day. This is not the ordinary janitorial job. This is like nectar, I read about how serving Tulsi is so auspicious, you know what I mean? So that's the difference. When you're actually Krishna conscious, then all the Krishna conscious duties become seva. It's all seva, no matter what it is. And that seva is the source of the greatest happiness that you can have.
So any spiritual activity is considered as a sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, you have to sacrifice time and sure.
Like havan, like holy fire, chanting?
Yeah, those are formal sacrifices, the official sacrifices. But even just the ordinary duties, getting up early in the morning, preparing this, doing this, that's a sacrifice. And because there's that instruction near the beginning of this chapter, we have yagyartart kamano yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. All work, all activity has to be done as a sacrifice, yajna, and it's made clear that yajna can also mean Vishnu, a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, whatever else you're doing is binding into this world. So for a devotee, practically everything you do is in that mood of sacrificing for Krishna's pleasure.
So one more question. So all sacrifices are equally important, or one overpowers the rest of them? For example, does chanting satisfy all other sacrifices, or all, like yajna is also important?
Yeah, well, it's called the Sankirtan Yajna. Yajna Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Sumedasa. In the 11th canto, is describing Lord Chaitanya as an incarnation of Krishna. Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sangopangastaparshanam Yajna Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Sumedasa. Those who are intelligent chiefly worship this incarnation by the sacrifice of congregational chanting. So yeah, that's...
Okay.
All right, I think we have to stop now because it's getting late. But let me end with a little poem. It wouldn't be a class if we didn't have some kind of poem. So this is kind of a little bracing poem. Dehishti mangsurudide bimatam chajasva jaya sutarish sadama matam vimuncha pushyanisham jagadidam chanabhangatishtam vairagya raga rasiko bhavabhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. At every moment see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. Vairagya raga, get attachment for detachment. You see? And that's the only way to do it, is get attached to Krishna and you'll be detached from life. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.